In the early 1980s, Cyndi Lauper burst onto the music scene with her first major single release, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun.
Oh, girls, they wanna have fun.
The song reached number 2 on the Billboard charts and quickly established her as a global pop star, with the song making the top 10 just about everywhere in the world. As well as being a global smash hit, it was also adopted as a feminist anthem, so it may come as a surprise that the song was written and recorded by a man 4 years earlier, and the lyrics had a completely different meaning.
Girls just wanna have fun.
Cynthia Ann Stephanie Lauper was born in 1953 in New York, and from an early age exhibited the unique and eccentric style that has become her trademark. At the time, though, it led to her being bullied by classmates at school.
I think I'm pretty normal. I always did. See, the more I tried to fit in, though, and the thing is, finding out what normal is so crazy, because what's normal? And is normal normal, or is that crazy?
She would eventually be expelled from high school, and age 17 she left home to escape an abusive stepfather. Cyndi had been playing the guitar and writing songs since the age of 12, and among musicians and other creatives she felt less weird and less of an outcast. For the next few years she played in a variety of cover bands, playing rock and top 40 songs night after night. She was becoming frustrated with just singing covers in bars and clubs. In 1977, the constant performing finally took its toll, and she lost her voice. She was told by doctors that she'd severely damaged her vocal cords and may never sing again. Undeterred by the pessimistic prognosis, Cyndi sought the help of a now legendary vocal coach, Katie Agresta. After a year of intensive voice therapy and vocal training, she had not only regained her ability to sing, she was sounding better than ever before. In 1978, Cyndi met saxophone player John Turi, and the two of them formed the band Blue Angel and recorded a demo of songs they'd written. Entertainment lawyer Stephen Masaki heard the demo and was impressed. Masaki is probably best known for co-founding Valiant Comics in 1989, but in the late 1970s and early 1980s, he was a manager. He'd fallen into band management when one of his clients, Dickie Betts, a founding member of the Allman Brothers Band, sued the band's then manager, record label and publisher Phil Walden, for non-payment of royalties. After Betts won his lawsuit, all the other members of the band also sued Walden, and he was forced to declare his record company, Capricorn, bankrupt. The band asked Masaki to take over management. He agreed and soon secured them a contract with Arista. However, creative differences with Clive Davis at Arista, combined with their heavy drug use, led to the band frequently breaking up and then later reuniting. During one of these breakups, Steve Masaki received a phone call late one night, around 11 p.m. It was from a friend inviting him to go watch a local band play in New York that night. The caller said her boyfriend Peter's best friend Stanley's girlfriend Linda's best friend Rose knows a girl in a band. Although she had no idea if they're any good or not, she had promised her boyfriend's best friend's girlfriend's best friend that he would go as a personal favour to her. Although he declined at first, he eventually relented and went along to the gig. The band was Blue Angel, with Cyndi Lauper singing lead vocals. He liked what he saw on stage and what he heard on the demo tape, and he set to work on getting them a record deal. It wasn't long before the offers started to come in. They were all for Cyndi as a solo artist. "The singer is great, get rid of the band," seemed to be the unanimous feedback from the music industry. Lauper held out, insisting that she wanted a deal for the whole band. Eventually, with the help of Masaki, they signed for Polydor and released a handful of singles and a self-titled debut album in 1980. The reviews of the album mirrored the initial feedback they had from the demos. Critics praised Cyndi's vocals, while deriding the band's musical style. The Blue Angel releases sold poorly in the USA, and didn't fare much better overseas. The highest chart position they reached was number 37 in the Netherlands with the single I'm Gonna Be Strong. They recorded a second album for the label, but it was never released and they were eventually dropped. Masaki had never really liked Blue Angel as a band, and he'd repeatedly tried to get Cyndi to go solo. So unsurprisingly, the band eventually fell out with their manager and fired him. He retaliated by suing the group for $80,000 of unpaid management commission. He won, the band broke up, and Cyndi Lauper was forced to file for bankruptcy. After Blue Angel broke up, Cyndi took any job she could to get by, working in retail stores and waiting tables during the day, and singing in clubs at night. She caught the eye of David Wolf, who took over as her manager and quickly got her a record deal with Epic Records subsidiary Portrait, and in May 1983 they began recording what would be Cyndi Lauper's debut album. The album was a combination of songs co-written by Cyndi Lauper and some cover versions. One such cover was Girls Just Want to Have Fun. The song was written in 1979 by Robert Hazard, a singer and songwriter from Philadelphia who began as a Dylan-esque folk singer before switching to country and western. He then spent nearly 2 years in a reggae band and eventually formed a new wave band, Robert Hazard and the Heroes, in the late 1970s, and they gained some popularity in Philadelphia. When it was first suggested that she record a version of the song, she wasn't exactly enthusiastic.
It was a song written by a man, so I don't even have to say anything. If a man sings that song, you know what he's singing about, right? Okay. So I'm saying to them, what do you want me to do? Kick my dress up and do a can-can? And they said, no, think about what it could mean.
The original lyrics that Hazard wrote told the story of a young man being questioned by his parents as to why he hadn't gotten married and settled down. His reason? Girls just want to have fun. For Cyndi Lauper's version, the lyrics for the first 2 verses were slightly changed to remove the mother and father saying, my boy, and a line in the third verse was changed from all my girls got to walk in the sun to I want to be the one to walk in the sun. The weird and creepy last verse was removed altogether. Now the song had completely changed meaning. It wasn't a son moaning to his parents that the girls he meets are not serious enough to marry and settle down with. It's now a young woman demanding that girls are allowed to have fun, just like the boys do. Although he'd agreed to allow the song to be adapted, Robert Hazard appeared confused by some of the changes. Or perhaps he was a little offended that someone thought it needed changing at all. When Cyndi started doing interviews to promote the single, she would tell people she'd written some of the parts of her version. This claim annoyed Hazard so much, he had his lawyers issue a cease and desist letter. His opinion would later change when the first of many royalty checks started to arrive. Cyndi Lauper's version of the song has sold nearly 10 million copies worldwide to date. It's garnered 3 Grammy nominations and regularly ranks highly in the greatest songs of all time lists. But it nearly didn't get off the ground at all.
We had a note from the best program director in the country that said, Girls Just Want to Have Fun would never be played on Top 40 and is not album radio because I sing too hot.
Despite this lack of support from radio programmers, Cyndi was determined that Girls Just Want to Have Fun would be her first solo single. For it to be successful, they would need to find support somewhere other than the radio.
I, Captain Lou Albano, the maker of champions, predict that Cyndi Lauper will be the greatest entertainer of all time.
Right away, I saw that rubber band in his beard and those earrings, and I said to myself, Cyn, this guy, I think this guy, you should talk to this man.
Cyndi Lauper met former wrestler turned manager Lou Albano on a plane flight, and her manager Dave Wolf, an avid fan of professional wrestling himself, suggested the two of them work on a project together. An opportunity presented itself almost immediately, and in the summer of 1983, the video for Girls Just Want to Have Fun began filming with Albano cast as Lauper's father. Her mother was played by her actual mother. Many of the other extras in the video were personal friends of hers, and she made a conscious effort to make sure everybody was represented in the video.
The video gave people a chance to see me and understand more about what I'm about, what the song is about, and understand it better. I think as far as visuals, for me, it's very important.
It was about having every little girl see herself so that she would understand she could have fun too. Not just white people, not just black people, not just Spanish people, but everybody mixed together because that's what makes it more fun.
The single was released on October 17th, 1983, but 1 month later it still hadn't sold enough copies to make the Billboard Hot 100. December 17th, it finally entered the charts, at number 80. Wolf went back to the world of professional wrestling to ask for help. A storyline was developed where Lou Albano would claim to be Cyndi Lauper's manager and the key to her success. Lauper would deny this claim, and after a public falling out, they would vow to settle their differences in the ring as managers of rival wrestlers. They began laying the groundwork for Cyndi to take up an ongoing role in what was then the WWF.
I made created and made Cyndi Lauper. Took her from a nothing. Just a minute. Took her from a nothing and made her the superstar she is today. Took her from a 90 to a 70 to an 80 to a 50, 40, 9, 8, 7, -4, back to a 1. Wrote the words to Time After Time. Wrote the words to Girls Wanna Have Fun. Did it all. Creator. Then this Dave Wolf, I call him Dave Dog, just a minute, butted in, claims he's the manager of Cyndi Lauper. Well, Dave Dog, I made her. I made this so-called lady. Found her in a barroom, found her in front of Madison Square Garden with a tin cup around her neck, with a little sign said, "Help a rising young rock star." I made her what she is.
Lauper would later credit her association with wrestling as a major factor in the single and ultimately her success. But in reality, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun peaked at number 2 in the charts in March 1984. That was 2 months before she'd made her first appearance on WWF in May. Perhaps the growing hype in the wrestling scene played a part, or maybe the song was just a slow burner that took a little time to take hold. It certainly didn't hurt the success of the album, that she was getting constant exposure, and not just from pop radio. The headline fight in July 1984 between Lauper's fighter Wendy Richter and Albano's The Fabulous Moolah was at the time the highest ratings MTV had ever had. The album, She's So Unusual, was the first debut album by a female artist to have 4 top 10 hits in the USA, and although it only peaked at number 4 on the album charts, it stayed in the top 40 for well over a year. The album has sold over 25 million copies worldwide, and 6 million in the US alone. Despite her initial reluctance to record the song, she's now come to cherish her version, and is very proud of the role it's played in the feminist movement.
During the Great Women's March, all over the world, ironically, I saw young women with signs that said, "Girls just want to have fun, demento rights."
It actually makes sense that Cyndi Lauper would be behind such a song. She is after all a direct descendant of Christian Lauper, a leader of the peasant forces in the Swiss Peasant War of 1653.
I feel proud to be a descendant of Christian Lauper, and that he was a revolutionary, and that he worked local, state to state, to get the people together and organize them. I think that's amazing. I know I'm always fighting the man. Now I know where it comes from.
The song still remains popular some 30 years after its release. The video passed 1 billion plays on YouTube in January 2022 and has over 750 million streams on Spotify, making it one of, if not the most successful signature songs that's actually a cover of all time. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for all the latest videos. And if you want to support the channel, there's a few ways you can do that. You can use the thanks button under each video to send a tip, or grab something from the merch shelf or store tab. There's t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags and cushions, all in a variety of colours and sizes. All profits go towards making new content and running this channel.